be kind to yourself. You're giving yourself such a hard time. And yeah, listen, like, of course there's things that you're going to regret, and, you're going to feel guilty. You might feel ashamed or embarrassed. Like, we all do, but we're only human. And there comes a point when it's really important just to be kind to yourself. I think one thing that hugely helped me with my mental health and helped me to sort of get out of a place of depression and turn it around to a place whereby I felt comfortable in my own skin was that I started to act with self-compassion. And I think a really easy way to begin, and an easy way for us to do that, is to think about how we would behave to others. So what I'd like to do in this video is just give you a bit of a walkthrough and share with you what worked for me. And so that hopefully if you're feeling down or ashamed or regretful, maybe there's a recurring thought or pattern. Maybe you're giving yourself like a kicking or berating yourself for a decision that you made or a mistake that you made. Well, I'd just like to share with you in this video something that's helped me. And maybe it's something you've heard before, but it's easy to say it and it's really hard to do. So let's paint the picture. Let's just imagine for a moment that someone who you love, someone who you care about, a close friend, a family member, a parent, a child, maybe your neighbour, maybe it's a sibling, someone who matters to you in your life, someone who you really care about. And let's just imagine for a moment that they approach you and they want to talk about something, and they reveal to you that they've done something that they feel bad about. Or maybe they haven't done something and they feel bad about it. But essentially they're talking to you and revealing something to you whereby they regret. They feel ashamed. And as a result of that, they feel guilt. And I just want you to consider for a moment, how would you react? How would you respond to your loved one? How would you respond to someone in your life approaching you and sharing this with you? How would you react and respond to them? I think for most of us, the way in which we would naturally respond is we would like to make them feel better. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we're going to solve the problem, or doesn't mean to say that we're going to disagree with the way that they feel. In fact, we'd probably be able to empathize with exactly how they feel. And hopefully, if it's not directly to do with us, maybe we could also detach ourselves from it emotionally. And that would give us just a greater appreciation, a greater ability to respond in a more logical, rational way than an emotional reaction. But essentially, I think as a friend, as a loved one, as a child, as a sibling, or as a parent, I think one of our innate instincts would be to try to cheer them up. We'd want to make them feel better. And so what I'd like to ask you right now is, what would be your reaction? What would be your response to that person bringing this to you? Well, I think it's fair to say, if you're watching this video, then you care. That your feelings and the feelings of those who you love matter to you. And so I think it's a fair assumption to say that you would act with kindness, you would respond with kindness and with sympathy. And what you probably say to them is, stop being so hard on yourself. Like, it's not actually as bad as you think. Now, whether the situation or the cause for regret can be rectified or solved or resolved or whatever, doesn't really matter. That's academic. It does not matter. What matters is the way in which that person feels about it. And I think we would hold a place for them, and we'd hold a place whereby we would be compassionate. You know, we would completely and entirely forgive them. Now, it might not seem like it's our place to forgive them, but then nor is it our place to judge them. But as a friend, as someone who cares about them, we can give ourselves permission to be compassionate and to ultimately sit with them in that. You know, put a literal or a metaphorical arm around them and say, do you know what? Like, it's all right. It's okay. Like, it's not as bad as it might seem. And even if there isn't a really logical solution to this right now, that's okay. I'm just going to be kind to you. Like, I care about you and I want you to feel better about it. Maybe the situation is beyond repair, but the feeling of your loved one, that isn't beyond repair. That can change. And with your compassion, I think it would. And so, taking a step back now, away from our example, we have a better understanding now and an awareness of how we would respond if a loved one came to us with a problem, with a reason for regret or shame or guilt. Well, now I'd like to let you into a secret. That loved one is you. That loved one that we've been talking about, this hypothetical situation, that's you. And the person who has held compassion, who has held the space and acted with kindness and forgiveness, that's also you. And that is exactly what self-compassion means to me. It means acting towards oneself as we would do to somebody else who matters to us. Holding the same amount of kindness, compassion, and forgiveness towards ourselves as that which we do for our loved ones. That's true self-compassion. Now, at first, that might seem really uncomfortable for us. And I get that. It's strange, isn't it? It's really strange how, like, we could do it so easily to others. We wouldn't even think twice. But when it comes to ourselves, it just feels a bit strange. Like we don't really want to give ourselves a break. In fact, we start thinking of even more reasons why we should just pile the blame onto ourselves. But I think if we go back to that example, back to that situation, we now know how we would respond to a loved one. And that is the response of self-compassion. And that's how we can act with kindness towards ourselves. I think many of us need it a lot of the time. And I think that very often myself included, we can make decisions, make mistakes, maybe act when we didn't really mean to act, or maybe we don't act when in hindsight we probably should have. And we just blame ourselves for it. And then we give ourselves a kicking, and then we just berate ourselves about it. And actually, it's not helpful, because very often whatever has happened has happened. And very often it can be remedied, it can be rectified. And actually, so long as we've not done any permanent damage to people around us, it can be repaired. And actually, there's no real harm done, but we build it up so much in our minds, especially when it's a recurring thought pattern. And whatever you're going through right now might seem unsurmountable. You know, you might be watching this video now and thinking, all right, that's fine for like little minor kind of mistakes and mishaps. But what I'm going through is really serious, you know, possibly going to change the course of my life. You know, maybe it's going to be a complete breakdown of a relationship. Maybe it's the termination of a job, you know, maybe it's the loss of a home, you know, maybe it's something that feels so profound that it's going to change the course of your life. And you think that doesn't deserve self-compassion. Well, actually, I want you to think of it the other way around. I want you to say, actually, the more severe you might feel that shame, that guilt, that regret, the bigger the self-compassion needs to be. Because we don't make decisions, we don't act or not act in isolation. You know, it all comes with context. We've all got busy, stressful, emotional lives to deal with. And very often we make decisions in the heat of the moment with the resources we've got at the time, and all we're doing is just trying our best. And for that, we can hold self-compassion for ourselves. We just give ourselves a break. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to ourselves. I think what I'd like to do is just invite you just to sit with whatever you're feeling right now, and whatever you might need that self-compassion for. And when that comes to the surface, I want you just to imagine that you've stepped outside of yourself. And I want you to imagine that you're responding to yourself just as you would respond to a loved one. And respond with that same self-compassion. If you'd like any further help with this, or if you'd like to talk about self-compassion a bit more and what it might mean for you, then click the link below and we can arrange a call. We'll have an hour together and we'll see if we can work with each other, and we'll see if I can add value. And from there, we can then book coaching calls. Currently, I'm booking blocks of 6 weeks at a time, whereby I see my coaching clients once a week for an hour, and we talk about self-compassion, we talk about identity, we talk about self-esteem. We help to create a vision and a design for life to help get you from where you are now to where you want to be.